Hi, I'm Kevin Ford of the STS-128 crew. You're watching NASA TV.
Good morning, Discovery, and good morning to you today, Kevin.
Good morning, Houston. Thank you for the wake-up music. That song reminds me of my wonderful home state of Indiana. Also reminds me of my oldest brother, David, who was the first one to ever strap me into the cockpit of an airplane. Thank you, David, and thank you, Houston. We enjoyed that music, and Discovery's ready for another great day in space.
The shuttle crew and space station crew now have their wake-up call. Their day now officially started, a day that'll be focused on the spacewalk, the first of 3 planned for this mission. That song was Indiana, Our Indiana, performed by the Indiana University Band, a song played in honor of astronaut Kevin Ford, who is serving as the pilot for the shuttle crew and on his first space flight.
Jose Hernandez giving Danny Olivas the green light to open up the hatch, the outer hatch on the Quest airlock, the crew lock section of Quest. Meanwhile, Pat Forrester is at the ready to serve as the quarterback of tonight's spacewalk, basically the spacewalk choreographer.
Okay, Danny and Nicole, at this time my show is complete with the crew lock post press, and at this time I'm going to hand you over to Pat, and you have to go for your EVA. Have a good one. Thanks, Jose. We'll see you in a bit. Thank you, Jose.
Jose Hernandez handing over spacewalk choreography chores to Pat Forrester for the remainder of the spacewalk until the crew is back inside the Quest airlock at the completion of this first EVA.
We have step 13 done. Okay, I'm clear, Nicole.
Okay, coming out.
And Pat, I can verify I got 2 handles down. And you'll see as you come out, that's a wire tie on the handrail. Kind of want to avoid that. Okay. Yep.
And Nicole Stott moves out of the Quest airlock to begin her first spacewalk. As you follow along on these helmet camera views that we'll be seeing throughout the course of the night, helmet camera number 18, that is Danny Olivas' helmet camera. Nicole Stott's helmet camera is serial number 16.
Okay, Danny, the first thing for you is to translate to the P1 ATA via the S0 route, and I've got some fare leads when you're ready for them.
A good view of Danny Olivas at the spent ammonia tank assembly. This spent tank weighs almost 1,300 pounds. It will be removed and grappled by the Canadarm2 and held in place for the next day and a half until the new ammonia tank assembly is installed in its place during the second spacewalk Thursday by Olivas and Christer Fugelsang. Stott moving over to join Danny Olivas at the work site for the release of the ammonia tank assembly. Kevin Ford now moving the Canadarm2 into position to grapple the grapple fixture on the ammonia tank assembly. Danny Olivas and Nicole Stott made short work of its release as they demated a quartet of ammonia and pressurization lines, cooling and pressurization lines, as well as 4 bolts holding the tank in place on the Port 1 truss.
And Pat, just reporting off my message, CO2 sensor bad.
Okay, I understand you have a CO2 sensor message.
Yeah, with a reading of 48.0.
48.0, stay by.
And Houston, copy.
Hey, Nicole, are you having any type of CO2 symptoms now?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is press on. We'll recognize that that sensor may be bad, and what we'll do is check in with you for CO2 symptoms. If you start to feel something before I ask, please be sure to tell me, and we'll go to a helmet purge valve.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Now, the second thing I had for you is I wanted you to use your wrist mirror and look up and see if you still have a green light for your WVS.
I do not.
Okay, if you can reach up there and press that button.
Nicole Stott has reconfigured the end of the station robotic arm, and Kevin Ford soon will maneuver the arm, operating from the robotics workstation in the Destiny laboratory over to the Columbus module for the next task of this first spacewalk, that being the removal of the European Technology Experiment Facility, or UTEF, from the end cone of the Columbus module. The UTEF experiment, along with another experiment called Solar, those two payloads were installed on the end of the Columbus module by Rex Walheim and Stan Love on February 15th, 2008, during a 7-hour, 25-minute spacewalk, the third spacewalk of the STS-128 mission that also delivered the Columbus module to the International Space Station. Solar will remain at the Columbus module, UTEF being returned home for analysis by the European investigators.
Great work, you guys, at this work site.
The Canadarm2 multitasking, grappled on to the ammonia tank assembly and being used to haul Nicole Stott and the European Technology Experiment Facility over to Discovery's cargo bay, where it will be berthed on a cargo platform for the trip back home. You can see at the bottom of your screen, still attached to the end of the Columbus module, is the MISSI experiment packages, the materials for ISS experiment packages. Those two experiment attaché cases will be folded up and removed from brackets at the end of Columbus and brought back into the payload bay to be stowed on the port sidewall carriers of Discovery's cargo bay.
That's good motion. Continue. Continuing. Continue off motion.
We're looking at sequential still video now from inside Discovery's cargo bay. You can see Danny Olivas there on the left, Nicole Stott there on the right. They are continuing to try to get this UTEF experiment installed at the back end of the payload bay. What is happening is that they're trying to get this UTEF experiment bolted down into Discovery's payload bay. There's a single bolt that will hold that experiment into place. It requires 11 turns with a pistol grip tool. Stott is only able to turn it 2 turns. She has tried this twice now and got the same result both times. So the EVA team is taking a look at what could possibly be causing that bolt not to turn all the way.
Okay, I got 11 turns. Route. I do have a low torque indication. I was kind of off axis. I can go hit it again. See if we get it to the proper torque.
Stand by. And do we have the out tab?
We do have the out tab.
Okay, break. Houston, good news. I'm sure you followed. We have 11 turns on this with an out indication. We do have a low torque light on the PTT, and he reported he was off axis. Would you like for him to retorque it?
Yes, Pat, we followed along. Great news, and yes, please go retorque it.
Copy.
The next major task for both Stott and Olivas is to retrieve the materials ISS experiment. The numbers on them are 6A and 6B. They're basically two square plates that have different types of materials that have been exposed to space for about 1.5 years. There's about 400 different materials included in this experiment. They're going to come back home at the end of this mission so that scientists can take a look at them and see how the different types of materials have reacted being out in the vacuum of space all that time.
Okay, Ted, you are clear to continue with our motion out of the payload bay.
Okay, so you're ready to get rid of me, and we'll move forward in the payload bay and then start up in the payload bay. And if you could just keep your eye on it and make sure everything is nice and clear, and then I'll let you know when I get a good clearance view.
I will do that.
Okay, everything clear the arm, Nicole? I think we have good clearance view.
Clear.
What?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anytime.
STS-128 mission specialist Danny Olivas making good progress on this MISSI experiment, getting ready to remove it. He has so far removed what's called pip pins, which are little small quick disconnect pins that we're holding these two, you see them on the right and the left, almost suitcase-like experiments open, and he has put those pins back in to secure them closed for the ride home. He is now in the process of removing the different connectors and cables. As he continues to work on this, Expedition 20 flight engineer Nicole Stott is on her way from Discovery's payload bay up to Columbus to help out Olivas through the remainder of this activity. You see Stott there making her way fairly rapidly up the payload bay of Discovery.
The band tech is installed.
These pip pins, as they are called, are just small pins that hold these experiments into place. They have rings on the end of them. There were some issues with these pins back on STS-123, which was back in March of 2008. That's when this experiment was installed. It appears as though their attitude has not changed over the past year and a half, as they're giving Olivas problems right now, not wanting to come out.
Move aft and to your left down the payload bay sill.
Right.
You've got it right there.
The ring has come off the end of one of them, so you see Olivas here in his helmet cam. He's getting out basically a small hammer-like tool, and he's going to try to hammer it out.
And good news, pin's out.
Great, so which pin was that, Denny?
That's the pin with the ring.
Okay, and you're going to go to work on the other one now?
Yes, sir.
As you can see, Danny Olivas has got this second suitcase of the MISSI experiment lifted up and ready to go back into Discovery's payload bay. Both he and Stott still making good progress during today's spacewalk. We're at an elapsed time of 5 hours, 19 minutes. Once they get this second part of MISSI stowed back into Discovery's payload bay, that will pretty much wrap up the spacewalk. There's a little bit of cleanup activity left to do, but the major tasks are accomplished.
The clamp tip pins and open the clamps.
You see Danny Olivas there on the far right part of your screen making his way into the Quest airlock.
Yes, I do want to get that.
He's going to grab a camera in there to
Start my left with my BRT.
go out and take a picture of some of these MMOD strikes that he's been noticing out on the outside of the Quest airlock.
But I do have 2 wire ties on the BRT.
And Nicole, can you confirm you have a red on the BRT?
And a red on the BRT, yes.
Thank you. Your swing arm?
My swing arm, I have now only the PGT with a red.
Copy. Small trash bag
Small trash bag,
with the wire ties securing it.
wire tie securing it, making a loop.
Okay, now you can just go across your mini workstation. Tell me what you have.
Okay, on my left D-ring, I have 1 adjustable tether, 1 rec. I have my spare safety tether, the big hook up to my workstation, and effector tether, and rest, 1 with a pip pin, and those are now attached to the CLA cover and the CLA, or the CLA cover bag and the CLA cover.
Copy. And 1 other wire tie.
Yes, and 1 other wire tie loop on my workstation, and the only other thing I have is an adjustable on my left arm.
Okay, I show that as a good tool inventory, Nicole.
Okay.
And Houston copies.
Going in?
Yes, you can open the thermal cover and go in.
Nicole Stott is making her way back into the Quest airlock. You will see her suit as the one with the broken red stripes on her legs. Danny Levis is grabbing a camera to take some pictures of these MMOD strikes on the outside of the Quest airlock, and also the Z1 toolbox that he was working in earlier.
Like we got just a few minutes of daylight here. Just wanted to verify that we're not going to be going past these spots on a future EVA to get where we could just pick up those pictures.
Hey, Pat, I've retrieved the camera.
Okay, Danny, we'll take a couple of those shields that
One
you
second,
saw,
CJ.
and then maybe a couple of those.
Okay, sounds like Danny's ready to go now. So I think we'll just go ahead and press on with this plan. Looks like we got good 25 minutes to shoot.
We've got 30 minutes.
And copy all that, CJ. And we have plenty of time to get the photos, and we're not planning on being past this area again, so this is great. And just a reminder that we still need to retrieve the Missy bag.
Okay, great reminder, Houston. Thank you.
Now at 6 hours, 13 minutes into today's spacewalk by Danny Levis and Nicole Stott. They got everything wrapped up that was designed for this spacewalk. They removed the ammonia tank assembly, put it back down into Discovery's payload bay. They got both the Missy and the UTEF experiments retrieved from the outside of Columbus and put them back into Discovery's cargo bay as well. There were a couple of get-ahead tasks that Levis and Stott were going to address, but those have been waived off to future spacewalk.
That torque multiplier board to get inside.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to give you, Nicole, is going to be the camera. All right, stand by.
Stott had attempted to install one of these protective covers on the cameras that are on the station's robotic arm in advance of the arrival of the HTV later on this month, but was unable to get that done. This is Mission Control Houston. If you look down below to the left of the screen, you can see Hurricane Jimena. It's currently 90 miles away from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. That hurricane has been decreasing in strength over the past 24 hours. We saw it last night whenever it was a fairly strong Category 4 hurricane. It is now a weak Category 3 hurricane, but the International Space Station and Shuttle Discovery currently passing 213 miles directly above it as they orbit toward the northeast.
And good evening. This is the beginning of Flight Day 5, and this is the hygiene break. It's a big day for us as Nicole and Danny are going to do the first EVA of our mission. And as you can see, they're getting ready, following protocol, and are in the mess after spending the night there in campout.
And you can see me working in the background there. Me and Tim Copra and I are working on getting everything ready, the EMU suits ready for both Danny and Nicole to get into. We try to offload as much of the work up front as possible because once they get out there, it's 6.5 long hours of hard work. And of course, we don't want these guys to tired, and we try to do as much as we can for them. This is at the end of the hygiene break. You can see that they're coming back in, and usually what does happen after this is both Tim Copra and I will stay in the airlock with them. We will close and seal off from the International Space Station and press down to approximately 10.2 psi and get them ready for to ingress in their suits and ready to get into the crew lock so they can go ahead and do their EVA. You can see the hatch being closed there by Tim Copra. We now are sealed off from the International Space Station, and the pressure will be brought down to 10.2. You can see Nicole there doing some checks on her DCM, making sure that things are all the parameters are responding normally. Very important that we know the EMU suits are behaving the way they're supposed to before they go out and do their spacewalk.
So you can see us inside the airlock. Jose and I are getting Danny and Nicole ready to go out into space, and one of the techniques we use to make sure that the suits fit correctly is to manipulate the boot bladder, and that way they can have a really good suit fit and have a good mission. And I tell you, it was a very exciting day for us, and we didn't even go outside. It reminds us a lot of our training. Sometimes you have to remind yourself that you're in space because there's so many similarities, direct similarities, between the great training that we've received and what we're actually doing to get these folks ready to go out into space. We follow the checklist, and you can see Jose here being very meticulous about keeping track, and we don't want to miss anything, so we make sure that everything is exactly as we've been trained, and so far, so good. We had a really good day, and obviously Danny and Nicole did an awesome job, and they went outside, and thankfully everything worked out well with their suits and the equipment. Getting inside the EMU can be a challenge, but Danny and Nicole slipped right in, and everything worked out great. You know, it's a little bit easier in zero-G to get inside the suit, and they acted like real pros getting ready to go out on their EVA. You can see Danny's got inside the hard upper torso of the spacesuit, and you can see into the crew lock. It's full of equipment right now, but we'll empty all that out, and that's where Danny and Nicole end up going into before we close the hatch behind them, and then we drop that portion of the airlock down to vacuum before they go outside. And you can see us working with their cooling garment underneath. We make sure that everything is fitted correctly and that they're ready to go out. You see Danny putting on his gloves, and that protects his hands for the hard work that they're getting ready to do when they go out on their spacewalk.
And here Tim is continuing to suit up Danny. It was kind of interesting for me as a first-time EVAer to watch the whole process go on with Danny before I was put into my suit. Like Tim said, the training is really excellent, so we're familiar with everything that's going to go on, but in the back of your mind you're thinking, wow, I'm really going out into the vacuum of space today, and it's going to be a really exciting kind of culmination to all that training to really do a real EVA. And here, the guys are finally getting me into my suit, and all the same things that they did with Danny, they're going to do with me. Like Tim mentioned also, the checklist is very particular about the order and what we do. And for me, I have long hair, so I have a headband that keeps it out of my face, which is really, really important, because the last thing I want is to be out there for 6 hours and have a couple hairs floating around in my eyes or around my nose. That can tend to get a little irritating after a while, but you can always get past it mentally if you need to. And important pieces of equipment that we have is our ComCap. It allows us to talk to each other. Danny and I can communicate with each other. We can talk to the guys on the space shuttle or the space station that are helping coordinate our EVA. And if necessary, we can also talk to the ground. So it gives us all kinds of ways to communicate while we're out on the spacewalk. You can see on my gloves I have a couple pads there. I have pretty big knuckles, so the guys built some special gloves for me to wear underneath the pressurized suit so that the fit would be a little bit better. And that's something that's really nice. We spend a lot of time in our training and our practice getting to know how the suit feels, and if there's something that needs to be taken care of, it gets done before we get to the point of actually going into space. And then we top it off with our helmets, which seal up the suit and makes for a full EVA outfit so that we can go out the door. So a couple of things of interest are on the top of the helmet we have a couple of sets of lights that allow us to see when it's really dark out there, and also a video system, a camera that gives kind of the view of what we're seeing while we're working out there, and both our friends inside that are helping us work can see that video to help us out, as well as the folks on the ground.
And while Nicole and Danny were doing a great transfer job on the outside, the rest of us was taking part in transferring on the inside, starting out emptying the M&M. And didn't know how that could be so fun to be kind of doing a moving job. But in weightlessness, it's really great to float away with whatever you have. They're going through the hatch with a big box. Also had several racks to transfer, and they had to be unbolted first. The systems are pretty smart though, so it's not much bolting you have to do. Frank DeWinner was helping me with all these racks. Actually, I would say I was rather helping him as the ISS crew member. He is very proficient in doing these things and where everything are. The racks we were transferring today was first a crew quarter, which went into the Japanese laboratory, and Bob Thirst would finally get a real home to stay in. Then we transferred an ARS rack, that's a rack for systems to keep the air clean on the station. And finally was a treadmill rack, so the crew can work out in space. It's very important when you spend many months in orbit, in weightlessness, to work out daily. This is actually the treadmill coming out here from the M&M into the node 2, where it's went into its place close to the lab, actually in between two crew quarters. The crew quarters which for present are inhabited by Nicole and Mike Barrett. It's not much clearance, but it's very easy to handle these big things in weightlessness, as long as you don't give them too high speed. And here it comes into its new home. From now on it will be the station members who will have to mount every part. Here you can see the treadmill itself, what you're running on, or will be running on. And that will be quite some work for them, but after Discovery has left the station. It's Mike Barrett here, who's putting the treadmill down into the rack itself.
Danny, double check that your left waist tether is on the airlock D-ring extender.
And Houston, airlock on the big loop. Just want to confirm you have
Airlock D-ring extender.
And
Nicole, your right waist tether to the forward UIA D-ring.
And I can confirm right waist tether forward UIA D-ring, bill closed, bottom lock.
Great, Danny, I see the airlock thermal cover is open. You can egress the airlock. Remember to avoid that MMOD strike.
Roger that.
Here comes out the airlock.
Okay, Pat, I'm out of the airlock, and I have my next points and my big tether attached forward UA to the forward airlock big tether or hook.
I had the privilege of IVing for Danny and Nicole today, and basically what we do is set up shop on the flight deck, and using a combination of the windows and all the cameras and monitors that we have, we keep track of where they're at. They know the procedures quite well, and yet we still have them in here to remind them what steps may be coming next. We're also talking to the ground for any last-minute changes or updates. We did run into a couple issues today and got some great help from the ground of how we're going to handle them.
And truly, the EVA, the success of an EVA goes to the EVA team, not only the on-orbit team, but also the ground team for pulling all the procedures together and making sure all the equipment is functional and operating properly, as well as the people who go back and do the research on the pieces of hardware that we're going to be working on. You can see me and Nicole there out at the end of Columbus, just really enjoying the view and having a great time doing the work that we had to do that today.
And one of the things that allows us to get a lot of work done outside in a very efficient manner is use of the robotic arm system, the Canadarm2. And I had the pleasure today of flying with expedition crew member Bob Thirsk, who has been on space station since May, and he was a big help having a resident of the station to help get all the cameras working and the lighting working and the just all the taping and everything we need to do to make the arm run efficiently, checking station systems, make sure everything is in a safe config. And we had a pleasure today. We had the pleasure to take Nicole across space from the back of or from Columbus module all the way to the payload bay, and just had some really beautiful views of her moving that European technology exposure facility. Okay, well, after the EVA was complete, great job of IVing today by Pat Forster. Then Tim and Jose were waiting in the airlock to get the hatch open. And as always, they're very careful with that hatch to make sure it opens just right. So they open the hatch, and there's a very unique smell to space, and maybe somebody can explain it to me exactly what it is someday. But here we are getting the crew out.
Coming up. There you go.
Thanks.
All right. How was it?
It was good.
Welcome back to Space Station. Congratulations.
Temporary stow helmets. After you cover them.
Okay, we'll do that.
CJ, once the cover's on, what we've been doing is you can just take that little...
On already. Switch fan to off.
All right, fan switches. Muting plugs out.
Danny, off on one.
Say?
What's that?
Said muting plugs out. Got anything to say?
Out.
Yeah.
We rocked out there. Everything done. Gotta love that.
You
We're
did.
gonna remove the waste ring from the hut. Do
Okay, I think I'm behind you. I got fan off on one.
Yep, yeah, you're right with us.
Okay.
All right.
Meanwhile, as the EVA was finishing up, here's Kevin, and we got Frank and Krista working in there, and they just cranked on the MPLM today. I think they got a lot of work done. Transfer tag-up's next, and it looks like a great job.
Krister, looks like you've done a great job in here today. While everybody was doing the spacewalk, you were doing the real hard work in the MPLM.
I had a lot of fun. It was not only me though. Frank, he really helped a lot. To have help workers there. Kevin, Mike, Tim, you know, anyone's pitching in when they have a chance.
Everybody's pitching in.
Yeah.
Great job.
And CJ helped a lot also.
Only this morning when he was fresh. Great job.
And CJ helped a lot
Houston
also.
for
Only
Flight
this
Day 5
morning when he was
highlights.
fresh.
Again, thanks to everybody in the Mission Control Center for the great contribution to today's work.